they were looking at their account managers and saying, hey, why aren't you retaining these accounts? Travis, we actually found out in this cohort study of their churn that it was a sales issue. The sales teams had changed multiple times and they were selling it differently. But then we were looking at aggregate numbers because all we saw was month over month churn, and we thought that it was the back end account managers' issues. Welcome to the Data Lection podcast, where data meets action. We break down analytics, provide practical stories, and give you the tools to turn your data into decisions that drive real growth. My name is John.
And I'm Travis.
And I'm grateful to be back here again, making sure and taking the journey through the stories. We just learned that last episode, Travis. I loved all the things about telling the story and supplementing it with data. I'm going to make sure and point all of you to our website, datalection.com right now. Please go there. Go and download this beautiful guide that Travis and I have designed just for you. It is a data-driven growth starter kit, and it's going to give you 5 steps to stop guessing and to start growing. It's all the things that Travis and I love to implement with all of our customers. We've personally used it, and we've curated it just for you. Today, we're going to talk about all of these silos that we have inside of our organizations. Travis, what's a silo? Is this a farming term? Are we now farmers? Like, what's a silo, Travis?
Some days we feel like farmers. We plant and we hope that something grows. But really, it's breaking down the different departments. So whether you have the marketing department, your sales team, your customer service team, your finance team, each one of those teams, and even subsets of those, collect their own type of information, their own data.
Yeah.
And so they're going, one team might be in QuickBooks, one team might be in HubSpot, one team might be in Help Scout, one team might be in just random Google Sheets. I've seen it all, folks.
Yeah.
It has been crazy on like all the information that's out there. And wow, it sometimes can be data spaghetti and a mess. And we have to collaborate together.
Yeah, spaghetti is nice like once a week, Travis. That's
Once a week.
you know, you're gonna have your tacos one day, your spaghetti one day, you got your meat potatoes one day, but you can't have spaghetti every single day, Travis.
Okay, I got to ask, John, are you a spaghetti and meatballs type of person, or is it spaghetti and meat sauce?
Okay, so technically, I will generally make penne, and I won't make spaghetti, by the way. But it's going to be a meat sauce, actually. Yeah, it's not necessarily the meatballs, although I think if I'm at a restaurant, I'd prefer a meatball, but just at home, it's just easier for the kids to just make it a meat sauce.
Okay, I tell you what, even though you said I enjoy penne alla vodka. So,
Okay.
yeah, I love that. I had that when I was in Florence, and it was amazing. And so ever since then, I'm like, now obviously there's not vodka in it. But it's just that sauce and
okay.
Money.
Well, that's a bucket list for me, Travis. Well, this is not just about spaghetti or penne. It's about spaghetti data. So, Travis, businesses collect tons of data, but too often that data is trapped inside departmental silos. And so I want to share a story that I have personally experienced where there were multiple volunteers being overscheduled. And this overscheduling of volunteers for this particular nonprofit was because they had 2 separate systems to schedule these volunteers. And indeed, there were 2 reasons why this mattered, Travis. Practically speaking, if you're having a volunteer just work too often, they're going to get burned out. Second, that they will somehow accidentally be scheduled over the top of something else, and then you're going to be stepping on each other's toes inside of the organization. Now, if I dive even deeper into this, we actually know that a volunteer that wants to volunteer a whole bunch, they're probably going to be more prone to giving and donating more often, which is really helpful. They can give very large gifts for some of your campaigns. But if you're tracking volunteerism in 2 separate systems, because it's, well, one is the manual labor and one is over here the administrative stuff, and no one knew about this particular individual, and come to find out that particular individual indeed did burn out. They could have been able to give a whole bunch of money and they ended up losing them. So that is the concept that I want to kind of paint this picture of how much data, how many of these volunteers by proxy are being lost by teams who are not sharing data back and forth, and they're stepping on each other's toes, they're stealing resources from each other without even knowing it. It's not that they're trying to fight against each other, but talk to me about what you've seen out in the marketplace, and how can we help these CEOs make sure that their teams are helping and connecting with each other?
Yeah. So it's really, at the end of the day, it's really not just about the information and the analytics or the data that's all developed around the business. It actually has to deal a lot with the personalities of your leadership team.
Wow.
And what I kind of work through with the team is saying, hey, we're going to be able to provide shared resources across the team, that way we can see all the information in one place. That can be very scary for, especially, department heads. They're like, well, I don't want to share. Or maybe they might be seeing I'm having a down month, and all of a sudden there's blood in the water. That's not the right way to think about leading, and it's not the right team and the right mentality for a team. They really need to be thinking, if there's somebody in the department that's having a down month, maybe it's customer service, maybe it's sales, maybe it's marketing, they shouldn't think they're doing a bad job. They should be thinking, how do I help them?
Yeah. How do I help them? How do I help them? That's all team language, Travis. And it's about making sure that as we do look at the full picture together, that if indeed my part of the picture is not looking great, I know I've got a team around me that's going to help me improve that together.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the collaboration. But everybody has to be honest with one another. Everybody has to say, I am going to share accurate information. I'm going to allow you to I'm going to allow you into my HubSpot, account to be able to see that, or I'm going to be able to allow you into QuickBooks, make sure we see the profit and loss for each one of the customers, because that's really when the synergy happens. When you're able to see it cross-functionally, what's happening with the customer, what's happening with the business, because now they understand the why. Maybe you were saying, hey guys, we're having to pay payrolls hitting a certain time in the month, and when we have that, we don't have as much cash in the business. Obviously, that's for a smaller company, but it trickles up to maybe that we're spending we don't have a lot of setup costs that come into the company right then and there. There's all much on the recurring revenue. Those types of pieces impact cash flow, and that then actually impacts mental thought. Oh, if like the finance team is saying, wow, we're going to be really tight on, this payroll cycle, or, oh man, we've got a lot of commissions we got to pay out. Do you think that they're going to approve a budget that you just thrown in front of them to say, hey guys, we would like to spend another $150,000 on this hire? Do you think that they're going to be in the right mental state and say, yep, let's go and do that, guys?
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get the answer you want if you're not showing them all of the data that actually matters. And indeed, weighted pipeline, for example, is a wonderful tool for those of you who are hoping to get some practical application. So weighted pipeline is going to be how many quotes do you have out there right now, then multiply that total amount against the percentage of likelihood. So you can put this up to your sales team and say, hey, what's the likelihood of this $100,000 deal coming in? If it's 75% likely, then now in the weighted pipeline, you're going to see a $75,000 amount. I would also recommend that you have an estimated close date on that, so that your C-suite can actually look and see the projected amount of cash flow coming in. Again, Travis, this is all about collaboration between the sales team to the finance team to the leadership team. If they're not sharing all those resources together, it can often feel like you are at a restaurant needing to order a meal, but everyone has to go into separate corners of the restaurant with a separate menu to go pick the thing that they want to buy, and then all of a sudden come back to the table, and then you're supposed to have a happy meal together or something. I mean, it just doesn't work like that.
It doesn't. And what we like to, let's back up even just a little bit, John, that it's when we're growing as a fast growth company, I've seen this a lot of times, each department is trying to go just as fast as everybody else. But each department then goes in and says, well, this is the software that I need in order to grow. Oh, well, that software doesn't align with maybe the marketing team's software, or that doesn't align with our customer service team. And then we get these mammoth type softwares that says, wait, we can do it all, but you're going to have to customize the heck out of it, right? We've all been in those, I'm not going to mention names. They're really big. They begin with sales and end with force. And they, it's like, but God bless them. And they have their place, but it's rather big. But even then I know teams that just have Salesforce, and then they also have, they're just running in QuickBooks, for example, or maybe they just have HubSpot. And like HubSpot doesn't necessarily, that's all in maybe for a marketing function, or they have a Marketo. I can go on and list over 200 different pieces of software that's out there that tracks analytics and does different tools. But each team decided that they really needed that at the very beginning, in which, when they're growing, sometimes they do. But as they grow, it's now they've been ingrained within that department. And it's really hard. What I consider spinal surgery is to rip one CRM out and replace it with a new one and expect the company to be running the next day. It doesn't happen like that.
Yeah, most of the time you're just going to have to report on them in a bunch of slides and sheets and all these sorts of things. Travis, you have referenced two sides of this conversation as I hear it. There is the philosophy of sharing data, and then there's the technology side of things. I want to get into the technology, give some tools that we would recommend that people are keeping an eye out for, but let's swing back over into that philosophy, because as I remember, one of the organization we got to work with, there was a development team. They had a development software. They had a development CRM. They were very well versed in this development space, trying to find leads. For those of you who don't understand the development term, because it's slightly different in sales companies versus nonprofits, but development is basically I'm going and finding new prospects that could turn into customers. Okay, so they had all the software. They got the tech stack. They're ready to go. Well, there was another initiative with a smaller team that was trying out some new things. Lo and behold, their list generation tool that they signed a contract for, Travis, was the exact same type of list generation tool that the development team was using themselves. And so I discovered this, but somehow I think it was the Salesforce report, actually, I was looking at things saying, wait, what is this tool here and who's using it? And then what is this tool here and who's using it? Travis, they were competitive tools. These are two tools that you would sit and they'd have a tech stack of saying, oh, here's the pros and cons of why you should use us instead of here. Here's the pros and cons why you should. And the one company was using both of them. And this was the epitome of not having the philosophy of shared data, of shared tech stack, of collaboration outside of these silos. So, it can not only hurt us financially, but let's talk again. Let's talk about philosophically first. Leaders that have the opportunity to encourage shared data, to encourage that we're part of a team, that we're not trying to expose somebody's error so they can be the scapegoat for everybody. Talk to the leaders first about the philosophy, and then we'll dive into that technology side of things.
Yeah, I love what Craig Rochelle has to say. He says, when teams stop talking, progress stops happening. I'm going to repeat that again. When teams stop talking, progress stops happening. And I want to lean into that a little bit more. Is you might be talking, but are you actually saying the right things? Just like in your example, that we're like, hey, we're probably having departmental meetings every week, and we're saying these are the problems that we have. But we didn't actually be honest with each other. So this is actually the solution that we need. We're having trouble over here, and we were trying to protect either our position, we're trying to protect our employees, and it's not necessarily the right mindset. We have to think when we get up in the mornings that our coworkers are for us, not that they're against us. When we have that negative mental math that's going on in our head to say, listen, there might not be for us. We're in a world of hurt. And there's probably some of you listening right now. You're like, no, I know this person is 100% against me. Then my question to you is there something that you need to do in order to make it right? Because you're just not only you're hurting yourself, but you're also hurting the company. and you need to be able to fix that relationship. And whether, I don't know what that might be, and I don't necessarily, I'm not a psychologist by any means, but being real and just acknowledging that those individuals might not be for your best interest, and then trying to figure out a resolution to it is the right path. It might be very hard. And I'm not necessarily always speaking from past experience, because I've had some really good working relationships with all the leaders that I've worked with in the past. But it came at a cost. And it came at a cost for my pride, to saying, listen, I'm willing to humble myself to say, these are the things that I'm having issues with within the company, and not diving into personal stuff, but within the company. And these are the things. Can we collaborate on how to help that? They've been able to say, yes, I'm able to help you do that. Sometimes it goes south and they're out to get you. Then I would say that's not the right company you should be working for then.
Yeah. John Maxwell says this: the best way to break down silos is to create a shared mission. And a team is only as much a team as they have a mission to accomplish. It's basketball season here in Indiana, where we're at, and it's been fun to watch all of these teams competing, both at the collegiate level and the professional level. And their mission is to win the game, and then ultimately to win the tournament or the playoffs. But they are working together to make sure that they get to win. And when we don't have a shared mission is most often when those silos and individualism will happen. And that's where, if something's wrong with me, I am less likely to own it, because I'm just in it for myself. I'm not in it for a team. I'm not in it for a mission. I'm just here for me. And so I am my own team, and I am what I need to win. And so I love how you have expanded the concept of silos right from the jump, Travis, that you can't have collaboration in data and in technology if you don't philosophically know, I want to be part of a team, even if there are difficult people to be teammates with. And I want to lean a little bit into the psychology side of that, Travis. I love the principle of not letting a single person derail all of the positive things that you can generate. Because if you have 99% of people that you have a problem with, it's probably not them. It's probably you. But usually we have, maybe one or two people that it's like, that's not the easiest person for me to deal with. Well, handle them professionally, but focus your positive attention on all of the rest that you can do, and collaborate with as many people as you can, because indeed the net positive result will be very, very good.
Yeah, that's a great point, John. Talking about collaboration, collaborate with the teams that you can collaborate, and the teammates that you can do that with, because 100%. Then you're going to see the synergy, and that other person is going to be the odd man out.
Yes.
And, the other part of it that you're mentioning is that where silos happen is misaligned incentives.
Wow.
So when we think about misaligned incentives, it is all around, okay, does this department, they're only focused on sales, but maybe another department is saying, hey, we want to focus on just bottom line operational revenue retention. But the sales says, I need to spend more money, and operations says, I need to save more money. Well, we have a problem, because sales, if they're going to spend more money to get more money, they're like, well, that should fix the problem. Operations says, well, we actually need to save more money in order for us to fix some of those problems. So we have a little bit of disalignment, but it's great when everybody brings that all together. Like, we've been working with quite a number of companies, even within the data election platform. Like, that's what we do. We help try to bring those different platforms together, and also the teams together, and helping them strive to say, yes, I can now see what's happening in sales. I can see what's happening in customer service. I can see what's happening in accounting. I can be able to have a collaborating ecosystem, and I'm not spending a ton of wasted time going in. I talked to a CEO this morning, and he was like, Travis, I spend 3 hours every Monday going through each system looking at their reports. I was like, oh my goodness, how much the time is that? How much is that costing you right now? Not only that, also just the mental like energy that you're spending just diving through reports. And they're not able to, that now they're saying, okay, well, what if we bring all that together? And so that's where I really, we coach people. They're like, bring this all together, bring this to the light. You're going to win faster when everybody looks off the same dashboard.
Yeah, synergy is about movement. Synergy is about growth. Patrick Lencioni says great businesses aren't built on silos, they're built on synergy. And silos, both in terms of philosophy and technology, have to do with going the same direction and really building off of one another. The concept of incentives being misaligned. I have my own failure story on that, Travis. We had an event of which I was supposed to go out and get leads. Okay, leads, quote unquote. That is by far one of the most ambiguous terms I've ever heard, Travis. Indeed, in certain technologies, leads will actually also equate opportunities if you're looking at different technology stacks and all these things. Leads, quote unquote. Well, we did not properly define what a lead was. So to me, what my incentive was is to bring back email addresses. That's all I needed. Names, of course, with those email addresses. But I sure as anything, I was going to win the most email addresses ever brought back from any event. Travis, I'm going to tell you right now, very quickly, that I indeed brought back the most amount of email addresses. And I also brought back the most amount of useless email addresses because so we had this iPad. I'm standing at the event out in a main thoroughfare in the hallway. And I'm thinking, well, what's the best way to get people to sign up? Well, I got this iPad that we're giving away. I'm just going to start telling everybody, hey, you want to sign up for a free iPad? I didn't tell them what we were doing. I didn't look for well-qualified prospects. I just knew my incentive was to bring back names and email addresses. And I did. I brought a lot of high school students that were volunteers. I brought back very, let's say, not ready to make multi-$1,000 purchase from college students. Then I also had a lot of startups that were nowhere near the tech level that we needed, Travis. I brought back a bunch of useless leads because I wasn't collaborating. I was just thinking, how can I bring back the things that make me look better? Now, it wasn't all that selfish. I just wanted to win. I had the list of what was winning. But then if I pull back now, and it makes me laugh because I've used this story so many times to help development, to help sales, to help account management. Let's go back to that same company where there was an account management need and there were some churn issues and they weren't exactly sure where the issues were starting. Well, come to find out, the churn issue ended up finding its inception point all the way back to the lead development stage. And this had to do with the original language and the reason why people were starting to quote. So you had your development team out there with a brilliant set of values of saying, hey, you can save money, you can, save time and all this sort of stuff. It was great. They would bring them in, they would get them quoted. They'd say, you can save money and you can save time. And it was all about this. And indeed, they would become customers. And then once they were customers, and there was no longer that second year of saving time and saving money. And it wasn't about the value that was being brought. It was just about that kind of first year hit on saving money and saving time. Then they drop off. And so we realized that by collaborating the data from development into sales, into the account management, we were able to ask account managers, what are the sorts of things we need people to learn that is of value that will keep them as customers all the way back into the development stage for leads? That connection of the data and the language deeply helped them to impact about a 10 to 15% improvement on churn because we were not in silos anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those types of examples, I remember once where, sales would go out and we're like, we're landing some of these multi-million dollar deals. And we go back and we're like, yay, we rang the bell and like we won. And then operations is like, you did what? You like we don't even have the staff to fulfill this order.
Wish we would have known about this sooner.
Wish we would have known about it. And it just spin them out. And now we would have these meetings ahead of time to say, okay, here's what's in the pipeline. Here operations. If we land this account, we're like you said, a weighted pipeline. Hey, it's about 75%. We're going to close this. Oh, now it's getting closer to 80%. Operations now is in the conversation. Okay, if we get this client, then we need, in order to scale up, our staff for X. Made it way smoother the next time we sign a multi-million dollar contract.
A multi-million dollar deal that sinks the ship is not valuable, period. And just simply because you were able to ring the bell doesn't mean that everyone's excited about that bell. And I've been in environments, Travis, especially kind of like, let's say you're later in the busy season of your business where you're trying to get through and everyone's working really, really hard and you think you're about there. And then all of a sudden, 10 more huge deals come in and you think, wait, I'm tired now. I wish I would have been able to reach out to my team to maybe pace ourselves a little more. We thought we were on the last mile of the marathon. Come to find out we're doing an ultra marathon and we're going to run 100 miles. And somehow I've burned all of my, energy out of my body and I'm not going to be able to make the pace and I'm going to get injured. And so back to the framework that we can use for data synergy. Andy Stanley says, collaboration happens when people see a shared vision, not just shared data. And I love how this does indeed connect back to the storytelling. This indeed goes back to ensuring that we are working as a team. But why don't you share kind of a 3-step framework for data synergy? And then after that framework, I'm going to give some practical tools of both the tech stack and the way you can use your technology. But give us those 3 steps to make sure that we're actually helping to get out of our silos and start collaborating well.
Yeah, so the main 3 steps that we like to talk about at Datalyction is step 1, define common goals. So really, you're aligning your department's KPIs to the shared mission. Or if you're in EOS, making sure the rocks are aligned with where you guys are going.
All right, so KPIs, tell us what that is again.
Your key performance indicators.
Key performance indicators that's regularly used. And then EOS you also mentioned. What is that for?
Yeah, EOS is Entrepreneurial Operating System. Comes from a book called Traction.
Yeah, great book, by the way. Yeah,
great
go ahead.
Book.
Back to you, Travis.
And highly recommend, if you haven't read that, please read that. Step 2 is improve your data accessibility. Okay, these aren't shocking steps, by the way.
No, they really are not shocking, Travis.
But I mean, it's just like, right, when you're working out, like there's ways to lose weight, stop eating as much as you are eating and exercise more. It's really not hard. Calorie deficit, making sure, John, you know all about that.
It sounds a lot easier than it is, but it's so hard, Travis.
So hard to commit to it, right?
It's so hard.
So I love the donuts. Okay, so but you really want to do is make sure you're using the right tools and the right dashboards and not wasting your time on literally logging into 5 different systems and looking at each dashboard. And then you have to do the mental idea of, okay, or my goodness, how much your team is having to do that. The next step, the last step, is foster collaboration and being able to do that interdepartmentally. So meaning that you have regular meetings with your team that shares the data insights together. And so we want to make sure that everybody's looking at the same numbers. And I'm going to give you a pro tip. Make sure you have the right date ranges.
Okay.
I can't tell you how many times that I've been in a meeting and we're like, oh, well, we see it, we're down by sales. And you're like, well, what date range did you pull? Well, it was last, 3 years. And you're like, okay, well, we weren't comparing that. You're not comparing it to the right. Or we're up, by sales. And you're like, what are you comparing that to? The last month.
Travis, I want to recap those 3 steps again for people who are curious. So step 1, define common goals. Step 2, improve data accessibility. And then step 3, foster collaboration and really make a habit of it.
Yeah, I'm reminded of the Simon Sinek quote is that the future belongs to organizations that share knowledge, not hoard it. Let me repeat that again. The future belongs to organizations that share knowledge, not hoard it. And that's from Simon Sinek. And I think about that a lot. That where we're like, we want to hold back maybe even bad data and not ask for help.
Yeah.
And we're a team together. If we're a team, we all grow as a team. We also suffer as a team together. So why would you want to have somebody on your team withholding that suffering that they're going through? And so let's be collaborative to be able to come together on that.
Something that is helpful is looking at alternative angles of the same data. And many times people have data in technology that they're tracking that they feel pretty comfortable with that angle. And I would encourage collaboration to take the step of saying, let your other teammates give you other angles at the same data. So I'm going to give you a practical example inside of the tech stack, and I want to dive into some of the tools we've seen that are helpful, Travis. So there was a technology around monthly billing. It's basically a monthly subscription billing tool that we were working with, Travis. And the data was somewhat helpful. It showed contraction, expansion, churn, new customers, all that. It was not really representing the type of company that they were. It was a largely annualized type of a customer base, but then the actual technology was just a subscription-based month-over-month sort of reporting. And so what we ended up having to do with this team to give the leadership the data that they actually needed was to pull the data out of that software and put it in something else that visualized it better. And this was because there were separate divisions inside of the organization. This was actually from an acquisition that had happened. So the main parent company was dealing with annualized customers in a total annualized kind of buying cycle. This acquisition was just a monthly recurring model that then really, though, was not representing the annualized customer base. I know this might sound a bit confusing, but those of you who understand annual versus monthly, this is going to track in just a second. So what we had to do is export all of that data and manually manipulate it inside of multiple different sheets and finally visualize that. So the leaders were able to realize we actually had an issue year over year by cohort. So this had to do not only with the philosophy on the back end of our customer retention, because a lot of times they were looking at their account managers and saying, hey, why aren't you retaining these accounts? Travis, we actually found out in this cohort study of their churn that it was a sales issue. The sales teams had changed multiple times and they were selling it differently. But then we were looking at aggregate numbers because all we saw was month over month churn. And we thought that it was the back end account managers' issues. And so indeed, we wanted to empower the account managers with the tools they needed, but they needed to know that the last 3 cohorts of these annualized customer bases were hearing different messages on why they should be customers. So they were churning for all these different reasons, and we had not empowered the account manager team. And that had to do with technology. So as a reminder, just because your current technology shows you a report, and just because your current technology is tracking data, does not mean it is meaningful to your company. Does not mean that you are seeing it the way your leaders need to see it to drive real growth and to make an impact on there. And so I always want to think of what are ways we can take multiple technology, multiple reports, combine them together into one spot that are in alignment, just like we were mentioning, Travis, a shared mission, a shared report. How can we combine everything together? So I love that story because it was so actionable, so helpful with that particular client.
Yeah. So, I mean, not only in the technology side of it, you have to say, what is the mental load that when you have different silos and as your team are they logging in, and how much time are they spending uselessly waiting on information to get back to them to make actual insights? And then you also got to think about like how much is your team? You hired a person maybe to do a certain role to work with customers, but they're sitting there wasting their time on running Excel spreadsheets and trying to pull out information. And it could have all been integrated into one system or being able to be pulled all together. And then you're also not having to just go and hunt for it all the time. My goodness, how many times you're like, I'm logged out. I've got to hunt for it. I don't know where this report is. It takes me another 15, 30 minutes. That's dollars that is being wasted on when people have to go and log into different systems and hunt around. So, but at the end of the day, I mean, when we think about it this way, is silos really do hurt. We all talk about it. We all know about it. It's just whether you as a leader, are you going to lean into it and say, yes, I'm going to address it. I'm going to have the courage to make sure that everybody is on the same page and that I'm able to make sure that we all basically get along at the end of the day. And what I like to think about it is that not only will the technology, it won't always fix all your issues. It really comes down to, are we all comfortable with sharing this information all together at the same time? And we make sure that there's not going to be infighting once this information's been shared.
Yeah, I'm going to give 4 things that you must be collaborating on in your tools. So 4 things you must be collaborating on inside of your tech stack with your team. The first one is a shared calendar. And I continue to see pushback of teams being unwilling to have their calendars available and accessible to their whole teams. And again, this is a philosophy issue, but if we are on a team, having your team see your calendar is very helpful because then they can know they have access to you, they can collaborate with you and all that. So shared calendar. The next thing are cloud-based shared documents. And this is still an issue. I still see organizations regularly emailing back hard copies of technology, solved solutions. So Word documents, Excel documents, whether you're in the Google space or Microsoft space, whatever that might be, there's others, make sure that it is cloud-based and you can collaborate on that. The third thing is going to be alerts, making sure that you have some sort of alerts, whether you're in Teams or you're in Slack or it's just an email alert. Make sure that these exciting events are being alerted to your team. And then I just want to make sure that you all are tracking on a timeline all of the touch points of your prospects and customers. And this means track your emails in there, track your meetings in there. You don't need to be insecure about sending an email to a prospect or a customer. Keep everything on a timeline because that's really helpful down the road on this continued stack. So again, the 4 things you must collaborate on for technology are shared calendars, cloud-based documents, alerts for everybody to see everywhere, and then a timeline of all of your prospects and customers with all your emails and file attachments. This is going to deeply connect everybody with that shared mission and make you feel much more like a team.
Those are really good practical steps, John. I mean, I love it because each team can take those away, and those are really easy like setups for each one. If you're not doing those things, my goodness, if you're not sharing your calendar, please do that today. You'd be amazed. And even people's calendar stock, that's okay. Let it be. At least now everybody can see, hey, you know what, I can schedule the right time or get this event going. Just think how much time is wasted when I can go back and forth and like, are you available these 3 times? Oh my goodness, kills me every time.
Well, hey, I want to wrap us up on today's episode, and we've got many more. Travis, we keep planning out all these pieces of content. Hopefully you continue to find value in all of this. Please, as always, like, share, subscribe, do all of the things. We want to make sure this is valuable, not just to you, but we want to collaborate with everybody everywhere. So make sure that you are collaborating with us to get this value-based content out there. Travis, any final thoughts on kind of, we're obviously very passionate here at Datalyxion about making sure and helping people out. Anything else that you would encourage people to make sure and take the next step in their journey?
Yeah. So like I said, I'm very passionate about data collection. I'm passionate about data and what we do to help leaders help organize their data all around key insights and making it actionable for them. Most of the time when I'm working with people, they say, Travis, like, what do you do? And I say, most business leaders, either they're swamped with too much data or they don't have enough. And then they're spending a lot amount of time trying to figure it out and go through all the process. But what we do is we come alongside and help you to be able to put that all in one organized space while being able to help save the company between 20% on just costs alone, on not having to spend all the time focusing on where is this piece of information at. We collaborate it all together. And so we really like to be able to do that. And I find that passionate because owners and business leaders need to be able to make quick decisions, and they don't have to sit there and have quick decisions off of what system I need to log into. They can just go in there and see it all in one place, and it collaborates all the leaders of your executive team all together. And that's what we're really passionate about at Data Collection, being able to pull it all together.
Harvard Business Review says that 80% of executives say that silos slow down decision-making and leads to inefficiencies, yet only 23% of them actually have a strategy to solve that. And yes, we're very passionate about helping you have a dashboard with actionable insights that really matter to you. And so thank you, Travis, for that. Thank you to all of you who have listened. Make sure and download our growth starter kit on our website, datalection.com, free to you. It's a PDF, going to have all the steps that we love to take people through to make sure you have the data to help you make decisions that lead to real growth. We're looking forward to having you on the next episode of the Data Liction Podcast.